Okay, it is 6:01 and we'll call the Planning Commission meeting to order on February 9th, 2022. And we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Stacy Eaton.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, does any commissioner members have any disclosures or declarations?
I do. On F6, that is our home occupation.
Okay. Stacy has declared a 6. Okay.
I have a comment on F3. The Olsons no longer live at that residence. The family that lives there now is Staley, so I don't know, are they applying for renewal?
We'll talk about that in that thing. We'll move on that one there. Does anybody see any conflicts on the agenda? Does anybody want to change the order of the agenda? If not, I would for a motion.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, and review of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to take a peek at the minutes? And did anybody have any issues with the minutes?
No issues.
Okay, I'll take a motion for that also.
I motion that we accept the minutes for the last meeting.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We'll vote on it.
Aye.
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 Okay, public forum section. This is for the public to address the planning commission, and this is for something that's not on the agenda. If anybody has any comments for the planning commission, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody? Okay, no one wanting to address the public forum? Okay, so report section, planning chair. The only thing I have to report right now is that the Firelight MPDO did get approved through the conceptual plan did get approved through the city council at the last meeting. And that's all I have for right now. Does any of the other commissioners have any reports or anything they'd like to? And Gary Chaves is not here today, so he doesn't have anything to report either. Okay, cool. We can take him off the agenda then. Okay, so that'll take us to the business item portion of the meeting, and we've got a lot to discuss on this, and my computer changed screens, so I need to get back to the right screen.
Question before we move on. Is member the council going to replace Gary Chaves?
Now that we have staff, we won't need it. Okay, so there are a few of these that do not have any, a few of the, the home occupations that don't have any business license on file. So what we want to do is make sure that we go through these and determine that, but as everybody can see in that list, they're basically just null and void. We don't even need to make a vote on them. But Dana is going to go ahead and send a letter out, making sure that it's confirmed with the applicant. And it does say, in our code that they're required to have the proof of burden, not us. So number 1, we don't need to take a vote on F1 because that one will be now null and void. Number 2, is that one good? No, that one does not have a business license either, so that one's null and void. 1 through 5, they're all the same. And I can, so I know on Lynn Olds, that's an old permit that he's applying for a different permit now, so that one he wanted to go on Mark Fahrenkamp. They haven't used theirs for a few years, so I did talk to them, and so them ones are definitely wanting to go. So that takes us down to business item F6. And I didn't see anything on there that business item F6 through 14 was that there's no complaints, everything's good on them. So does anybody have anything that they'd like to discuss about them? If not, I'd take a motion on them.
I motion for approval on business items F6 through 14. Is that the whole one?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote on that.
Aye.
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 Okay, that'll take us down to business item F15. So this one, I'm going to give everybody a brief history on this one. It came through JUC quite some time ago. I'm thinking maybe June of last year, July of last year, and they want to split this property, but the property does not meet the description for the code. It needs an 80-foot wide right-of-way or 80-foot lot, and it only had 78 foot. So they went through the appeals process, and everybody can see the letter in the front of the package here that basically they're going to allow her to go through, but she has to come through and go through the complete process. So as far as the review process, we need to review the preliminary plat portion of it with the map. And I'll read the staff comments. Let's see, wait a minute here. At this time, let's go ahead and read the applicants.
Okay, the applicant would like to have this read at this meeting. We really regret we couldn't be here tonight. Please read this aloud if appropriate. We wanted to bring up needs with the fire department. Our engineer spoke with Kevin Gildia at the fire department. Kevin inconclusively brought up the possibility of having us do some extra fire preparation in order to make up for not having a fire hydrant come within the 250 feet of the building as required by the flag lot code. We want to present the contingency of building with insulated concrete forms, which is our intention, and which provide excellent fire defense. Also, we will landscape the whole lot. Please note that our building back there will improve the fire safety in the area. Right now, our backfield is a lot of dry grass and shrubs for most of the year. It is safer for our neighbors for that lot to be landscaped and cultivated. As for the turnaround, our engineers made different propositions, but has yet to hear a conclusion from the fire department. The access road is 26 feet wide and 165 feet long. It is perfectly straight road. It comes out onto the 5-lane Tocqueville Boulevard. It is required that we pave it. We request that the fire chief give permission for us to not build a turnaround because of the ease of entering and exiting the particular lot. Our drive is only 15 feet longer to back out from. Sincerely, Tersa and Jacob Stewart.
The staff comments on this. Switch screens. So staff comments, the applicant meets the fees, the title report, the vicinity map, the developer report, not applicable. Development agreements, not applicable. It says the applicant originally asked for a simple subdivision and was denied. The applicant appealed the denial to the appeals judge and was given a variance to the need to create a flag lot. The judgment stated the applicant needs to follow the simple subdivision process and needs to create an access easement to the parcel in the back. Did you have any other review or comments on it? I think am I missing something on there?
Just basically on review of that, they will need before we finish off the appeals judge, so they need to go through the complete subdivision process, that simple lot subdivision process or flag lot process, which takes us to our next step, which will be construction drawings. It'll be what it will envision is a simple 3 or 4 sheet, will show us a site plan, a utility plan, and a grading plan. It will be combined, so if they have drainage, but they're not the house is going to create some sort of drainage when it rains. We need to be able to capture that and put it somewhere. Those construction drawings will show that. Much like it's a lot of work compared to just one lot, but it is the process that they'll have currently. And so basically those construction drawings will address that issue. And then, like I said, I guess my recommendation is that we put it based on the notes. As far as going to a final plot, we talk to the village judge and legal counsel because the parcel already exists. They're not creating any parcel, especially if they're just required to create that easement. The easement will need to be recorded, legal description, and a deed, going to the so we need to record that Washington County that shows that they have that there. So the big team, when we get into the weeds, getting into the weeds of it all, we'll come out during the construction drawings because we're pushing guys all into the create them. And that's where Kevin Gilday from the fire district would either say yes or no, whatever it is, and it is a preliminary utility committee meeting. His comments would exclusively be that they got back and there needs to be some sort of
I don't think we can allow them to have a special permission that no one else does, especially with the fire. They are aware too, so that requires a 26-foot paved surface all the way back to that flag lot. And then it also requires that they have 2 additional off-site parking or off-street parking for the front house. And I think they've showed us that that's right back there. Other than that, I think they've met the rest of the requirements for the preliminary plan. Did anybody else see anything else that then you wanted to discuss about it?
Just one thing that I noticed looking at the flag lot, 1019E4, it talks about the staff of the flag being the frontage of the property. On this drawing, it shows the front as the bottom side of what would be the flag. So the front side would be the 3-car garage side, so it's not labeled correctly on that drawing. So it shows 25-foot frontage on the bottom side, not on the staff side, and that's what the code states.
Okay, thank you.
Basically, the 26-foot easement does not come out of the frontage of the front parcel.
Right, so as long as they, well, going by the word of the code or the code, it says that's on the flag side. So, you know, if you change the front of that house to that, it still works because it's within that 26 feet or whatever. But just something I noticed.
Take a look at that one. Might have to change something.
I
on the
couldn't
construction.
tell the scale looking at that, if that garage was far enough back or exactly where that 26-foot easement ended and that kind of thing.
Because the flag doesn't mean on the frontage, it's only 26 feet, but the frontage is being measured at the dedicated building, which is over the boulevard. I think that's what that's.
So what this says, it says no building or structure will be located within the staff portion of the flag lot. The front yard of a flag lot shall be on the side of the flag portion, which connects to the staff. Yard setback shall conform to the setback requirements of the zone in which the flag lot is located. So
not viable.
Looking at that, yeah, and even as I read the judgment, it talked about it being a flag lot, so,
That's why it was denied the first time it came through, because of things like that.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I can see, just looking at it, I can see that they can still make that work, you know, in light of what I just said, but it needed to be changed a little bit.
I agree with you 100%. I think you're spot on. That's the problem. That's the concern when you do things like this. You know, and you look at the parcel behind that one. It's probably really good.
Well, and then you look north of that, and there's the same setup. So.
They're trying to subdivide and separate into these subdivisions that are substandard to public safety, essentially. To protect people. Not necessarily public
So my concern is, so there's another flag lot. Well, not a flag lot necessarily. In Tokerville, there's another 2 homes that share a driveway. And one of the homeowners, apparently, I don't know what happened, but they start parking their car, their fifth wheel and everything in the driveway and moving it over farther and farther and farther. And then all of a sudden, here's a fence up there. And now the homeowner only has a choice of pulling straight in, pulling straight back, backing out on Toker Boulevard, ends up selling the home. You know, it was a mess. So I talked with the appellate judge today. I've known him for many, many, many years. And so I just called him and chatted with him about this. And he said it would be highly appropriate to prohibit any parking in the right of way from either homeowner or visitors or anything else because of fire safety, emergency vehicles, somebody's parking and they can't get an ambulance back there. Yes.
That's the portion of the public safety I was just talking about, is that, but this was denied originally,
But he also said it's highly appropriate to make certain that they do have that each home has a turnaround there so that and eventually Tokerville is going to end up with a code enforcer, and maybe they would, I don't know. My thinking is let's try to avoid that situation that we had in Tokerville before.
Didn't the fire make a comment on this also? Where's it? Is the fire report? Okay, it's not here. Ash Creek Special Service District said there is sewer capacity for this project. The developers understand and agree that they will need to get plan approval for the sewer system. After approval, they agreed to pay all costs associated with the construction and impact fees. Please let us know if you have any other questions. Can you remember what the fire? Just that, yeah.
That would be the only comment that we got back. Yes, we did not get an official comment back as of yet. We just went to the joint utility committee to get their feelings and their suggestions of what they needed to do on the construction and administrative practice. And so that's where I was just saying.
Yeah.
So that's really the comment.
So he's told them that they need to do the turnaround and yeah.
In their letter to you guys tonight, he's told them they're going to do it.
Okay.
So it was just that. It's a second from the owner, actually, but
I'm all for stuff like this. Utilize the property. They own the property. They should be able to utilize it. But I just think we need to also be careful in making sure that we can put as much protection in there as we can.
It would be nice to see what the fire department did say about turnaround, and is it even feasible on that lot?
They did.
Did they
They
come
had to
back
have
and say
a
that they
plan.
could do that?
Yeah, that shed's going to be removed and There's,
Right.
they do have enough room. to
So
do it.
That's
That's why they put that 3-car garage on that side of it, so they could
Yeah.
keep that.
On the construction drawings, the fire district will need to approve one signature block on the construction drawing. They approve what's the design is. And then it will be inspected. Make sure that it's
Okay. At this time, we should probably get the public hearing portion out of the way, so we'll open up the public hearing for a preliminary plat application submitted by Jacob and Tirsa Stewart at 132 North Tokert Boulevard for tax ID number T-68-A-3 and T-68-A-1. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment on the public hearing portion?
My name is Georgia Carpenter, and I'm just a little confused from the letter that I got. And the reason that we came here tonight is that the intent of this notice is to inform neighbors of a proposed nightly rental. And so I'm confused about that. We got two letters. Well, it shows the lot in question here. So it shows the Stewart's property map, but it showed in the letter, it said that if you're concerned that there's a nightly rental thing that we got from the city, so I'm just confused.
Sorry, it was a letter that I should have We just wanted to make sure you didn't.
I know, right? I'm like, what? What? Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Would you like to address the commission?
Yes, my name is Steve Carpenter, and again, we have property lines that are contiguous on our west side and also our north side of some of our property. We are very familiar with the Stewart family, and we fully support them if they can get the necessary approvals to go ahead and build this home that they desire on their property. We don't feel like it'll impact our property or anything else as far as being the contiguous property lines on two different areas of our property. So we're in full support of this. Steve Carpenter. Oh, address 47 East Pecan Lane. If you look at the map, we have property that runs along there would be their south border and also their east border. The line up there is our property goes further to the east from their north and east. So, but anyway, we're in full support with the Stewarts. So,
Would anybody else like to address the commission on this? Okay, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, is there any other discussion on this portion of it? We want to, anything else we want to talk about on it? Anybody have any more comments on it?
So this is the city council or the public hearing.
I don't think, well, we can look at the code, but I think they can bypass the public hearing, city council on a preliminary plat, but we'll check the code. Okay, if we don't have any more discussion, I'd look for a motion.
So I would make a motion, but I'm not quite sure how to make that, because I would like to include in that the prohibiting the parking in it, and to be certain that there is a turnaround, I guess, follow basically the
So
city codes.
The one thing we should do in the recommendations include all staff comments, which will include fire, will include Ash Creek, it will include everything that Darren and everything that's been put in from the comment section. So we need to make sure we include the staff comments, and then if you want to put the stipulation to no parking in the right of way or in the easement, then
So I'll make a motion then to include all the staff comments to, I guess, approve this, to recommend approval to the city council, and include all staff comments, and to also prohibit parking in the right of way.
I second that motion.
okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of business item F15. That'll take us to, let me get in the other one. Okay, the next item is a discussion on preliminary site plan application for Settlers Junction RV. Application was submitted by Lance Churros for 112 pull-through RV sites and 25 permanent camping lodges on approximately 22 acres of highway commercial zone property. The tax IDs 10-3-0-27-432 and T-3-0-0-27-342. Approximate area is 1590 North Old Church Highway 91, Tocqueville. So we have a lot. Let me just go through this information on the thing. We did everybody go through the codes that affect this, the submittal codes, and the one thing I actually called Darren last night. I said the sewer and everything's not on there, but if you zoom in far enough, it's there. And I was like, I saw that plan, but
had to do the same thing.
the topo plan. So let me read the fire recommendation. Let's see. It says 500-foot spacing, 250 feet from where the truck will spot a fire. It says it doesn't meet that requirement. It says note all 500 feet spacing must be measured at hose lays as the hose lays on the ground. Let's see. It says road width above what is required. It says 20 feet, no hydrants, 26 with hydrants. It says it's not observed. The 26-foot road width acceptable, or width is acceptable. Is a turnaround required? Turnaround here is required if over 150 feet. Verify approved turnaround supplied, and it's a pass on that one. The turning radius verified, pass. The alarm system it says, is it required? Read that one. It says verify code requirements for the alarm system. Do not approve until approved alarm plans are accepted. It says it passed, so you already got your fire plan in. Sprinkler system required. It says if required, no approval until that later date. The rest of that is not applicable. A lot of stuff in here. Here's the application. The title report, everybody looked at all that. And then the staff review from Darren. Let's see. So it says for the city code 1021A3, in reviewing this section, the city has placed a big emphasis on side entry lighting, auxiliary structures, and landscaping. I feel this portion of the code is geared more to the design and the construction drawings. These drawings will be required and reviewed in the next step. For the code 10-62 submittals, application fees good to go, title report's good, vicinity map's good, development report, statement of intent. We need clarification on 4, 5, 6, and 7. You remember what that is?
I think Barry addressed those, because we get recent
That thing, yeah, the back portion.
I did not verify whether those were be conditions.
Yeah, for staff comment. The development agreement is still needed. The soils report is needed. The covenants conditions is not applicable. security agreement is done after the road dedication and construction drawings are complete. Verification of the state registrations not received, we may not need that. The public offering statements not received, we may not need that. Description of key planning contents, no parking spaces required, need parking spaces provided. I feel that the applicant is generally in compliance with the submittal of this project. The project is going to need to have a new dedicated road built to the city standards along with the site. I feel the applicant could move to the next step of the construction drawings. The recommendation to the planning commission would be to approve the conceptual and preliminary plat with conditions from planning staff and other reasonable conditions.
So really quickly, when I did do the reviews, I basically just go down through the application and then also through the code. Some of those things we had met. I sent them to the applicant's engineer probably 2 weeks ago, and hey, you need to give us some further clarification on these items. And I believe they did on number was 4, 5, and 6, and what that was. But so reasonably, I think that the code also talks about not in the applications that the policy there that talks about that we could enter into a development agreement that possibly is something that we needed. I talked with Mary Thompson, the applicant's surveyor there, and talked to is the right of way for construction of UDOT. UDOT is going to have some input there for the design. And then, like I said, I thought I had in my comments list that road dedication needs to be, I talked with Mary about that road dedication needs to be repaired at the same time as the construction drawing, but I would encourage them to get that road dedication put together soon, and because it's going to be required that the road dedication come before the construction drawings are approved and finalized.
So as it sits right now, there's actually not, they don't have access to their property to do this development, so without the road dedication, just so everybody's clarified on that. It's, yeah, they're gonna reroute that road, as you can see, the frontage road is, because they don't want that to tie in on the new bypass portion of it. I have a couple comments on it. Actually, would you guys like to, would the applicant like to address us on anything? Would you like? No? Yeah? You want to tell us a story about it, or?
My name is Barry Thompson, for the record. With this design, a lot of the items you mentioned, those 3 items that are in with regards to commercial site requirements. One of which we have a median going into the site for the landscape and things, and that was accommodated and revised to this latest plan that
The paving band and the 5-foot sidewalks on each side and the 10 feet. Yep, I saw that. It's,
the sidewalks and it's goes through there. I didn't make any revisions to the fire department comments. I didn't see that before. This was the first I heard of that. Concerned about some of the highway space and they're laid out the same way we do with 200 foot circle, interlocking circles, making sure they cover everything and the whole site. So I can look at from comments and the parking and the screening, the landscape and commercial site requirements that are in code, basically say that the preferred way to have the parking sites is that road between public road and those sites, but where we got those parking sites, like got some buildings, blocking view as well as the distance from the traveled way is 150 feet plus to those sites. So I don't, plus with the recreation areas and things, I don't put the screening parking on the public way is going to be an issue. And then on the other side where the existing old highway is, but that's a hillside. You know, don't drive down there, there's a steep cut on one side and there's no way to be visible from the highway. From my view,
The one thing that I saw that haven't seen in there is it calls for the trash enclosures, where you're going to put them and how you're going to screen them.
oh, okay.
So I didn't see that in there, and I just caught it the other day when I was reviewing it.
Yeah, that's something
We need to make sure that we put that in there.
and a lot like the one that you just passed with the cyclone, this is a little larger, but still goes through the and all that stuff, and will require all the signatures and the members of the board will have all of that ready to go before we start construction.
Thank you.
Yes, you take those others.
And I can kind of give everybody a little bit more history. So this was actually, I can't remember what stage it went to prior, but it was up and it wasn't Settlers Junction, it was Juniper Junction. And this pretty much was approved through to the construction phase. I can't remember what phase it was at.
We got a
Final approval for construction. And it was just to the north of this, or just above this is where that was located. And some of the screening issues he's talking about was because they were putting it right along Highway 91. So, and that's, and this R17. So they were trying to get the screening issues to meet the requirements, but how they set that back. We go back to the site plan. So you can see to put the buildings and all that stuff in there, and then the elevation, I can't remember what it is. It's like 20 feet above the road on the old highway or something. Yeah. So the screening issues, I think, have been addressed.
Scroll down to the bottom, see I drew a cross section. And those are mature trees. 35, 40 feet tall. Eventually, and you see the power pole on the hill, and then they're just to the left of the property line, which is actually the line, is the existing frontage road. So there's quite a large hill with the road and down below
The other thing that, and we actually have it on our agenda later, is to talk about some nightly rentals and tiny homes. And we haven't figured this out yet. And this is kind of for the commission. I don't know if we need to include this in our motion somehow, but the nightly rentals, we're going to have to make an amendment to the code just to allow the RV park to operate, because you need to have, you need to be a resident here to do a nightly rental, and each one of these spaces is included in nightly rental. So we might, when we make a motion on this, we might have to say that it will be subject to the new code, but that's just, it's going to come up later on our discussion item.
Can I ask you a question?
You bet.
Real quick?
Yeah.
Is there anything in the code right now that would allow provisions for, say, a hotel to go with
Not really. And it better be owned by a resident. Yeah, we need to address a few things in it.
This is how we lure you into moving to Tinkerbell.
All right.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments, discussion items on it?
Just a question. In the highway commercial, which this is, right? Is that what it's zoned? It talks about grading, and specifically it says land preservation shall shape and guide site development of commercial proposals. Grading shall not substantially alter natural grades to increase the area and developable land. Grading of or within characteristic topographical areas such as ridge lines, hillside features, and creeks is prohibited. Innovative grading concepts such as contouring grading that incorporate use of variable slopes and meandering tops, toes, slopes techniques are encouraged. What I see on the plan is a big flat space, and off on the east side, it looks like it's about a 30-foot berm. To me, that doesn't really fit the natural contours and working with that. And I just, something I noticed, and I thought, I don't know if that's.
Yeah, as I was going through the building, that the building contour grading on the side slope.
It has to kind of match back into their natural drainage, and that's another really important thing, is it needs to
So it's gonna have
contour
some
back into
steeper and some
natural.
flatter slopes on the sides that is visible, and the trees are going to fill in and basically, you won't see that. And then, but the main reason for that slope and what we've done is the sewers up in the realignment of SR 7, or SR 91. Highway 91. And so we're going backwards with the sewer grade. So we're having to have the sewer 14 feet deep in the new roadway in order to get to the back of the lot and have that sewer line 2 feet, which is required by Ash Creek. We have to have that filled on that corner and fill it up. RV parks are, it's not easy to level an RV and utilize it. It has a lot of grade changes and things to the site, but the exterior perimeter and the appearance from the outside side, you're going to see different grades and slopes. It's going to be attractive.
Also, this site itself is a lot more level to begin with than we were at our approval. So
Yeah.
we were moving over 150,000 yards to bring the site down and export off site
Yeah.
after we flattened. So just the nature of commercial needs to be looked at as hard on the ordinance as what you know, some of the previous things is on the 107 acres across the street, kitty corner, that we'll need to get a grading permit. I've got 175 feet of elevation change from one end to the other. I'm gonna have some 50-foot high boulder walls, because if I try to get any kind of commercial, that's gonna be a motel, a strip mall, whatever we can create in a commercial zone, it's gonna have to have extended flat spacing where I can't step the commercial building. So just some adjustments, and I think common sense is gonna rule, where if this was a residential property, we could get away with some 5, 6, 7% grades. But with an RV park, we gotta be within 1.5, 2%.
Just an idea, if you've got, these are 85-foot spaces. So if we had 2% slope across those sides, we've got 1 foot 8 inches fall from one side to the other, that someone's trying to level the ridge. And so it's quite pertinent to this site to have it flat areas. But like I said, I've taken in that your grading code into consideration and doing quite a bit with the outside. On there we have, let's see, it's not on this one, it's actually on the other plan. It's actually on the slope plan, that other plan. There's actually under, well, you've got two different things in your code. When you get into the hillside ordinance, it talks about 15% grade to greater. But in the main part of the preliminary site plan, where they want to see the slope map, it gives me the grade variance, the 0 to 10, and then the 10 to 16%. So there's a little bit of difference there. But if you add up the 10 to, or the 0 to 16%, we're not creating any more than that area with what we're doing. So we're not increasing the area, just kind of consolidating it as far as what's actually there on site in that 0 to 10.
Just so you know, basically, when I looked at that, I could see, because in our conceptual review, we require this map. And we went, we created that because you can see what was talking about. It's finished created now in the construction drawing here again. We'll see what comes out, but with this cross section, that's just kind of a visual. This is kind of what we're believing, and it's based on grades, definitely. But there's also our retaining wall ordinance that only allows you to go maximum height of 18 feet. If you're going to go above, I believe it's 16 or something like that. You got about terraces. Meaning terraces will come up so many feet, 8 feet, and then 4 or 5 foot step, and then there's the terraces and things like that. We've also got in that same ordinance that talks about the 2% slope can only be so high. And so they can, if they go to a 2% slope, which is kind of a common engineering practice with what you would see on a hillside, where it would be landscaped and things like that. We don't allow that to go a certain height. And I don't know exactly what that is. I don't remember, but I was reading that in as I reviewed this, and then because it applied more so to the construction drawing phase, but I would get heavier in that review. But yes,
It just seems like a pretty ambiguous thing in the grading plan or the site planning, and you're like, well, what is, shall guide, right? Well, is 30-foot drop, acceptable versus,
that won't, as far as the retaining wall.
Yeah, well, yeah,
They're gonna have to do the terracing here.
right.
And I don't believe we're planning on any retaining walls on this site. Slopes, and they can change the slopes.
And that'll all come out in the construction side of things. And
They'll be held to that. If that need comes to, because they can go to the 2% slopes for a certain height, but they can't do a 2% slope for
Right, for so
60
long.
feet or 30 feet. But they can do, there's different things they can do with slopes, so you gotta keep that.
Answer your question?
Yeah.
That was an in-depth.
Yeah, I just, and even as I'm reading, I'm like, I don't really understand exactly what that means, because, I envision this thing doing these kinds of things to match the code, but.
And that's why the state of the side goes.
Everything will come toward back.
Yeah,
Contour to it.
okay.
Can't have a road.
No, not that. I understand the flat spots, but to do some terracing to get that slope down could be something.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? I would just so if anybody makes a motion or we're ready for a motion, I would just like to make sure that we put in there that we have the trash containers for the next drawing, and that the tiny cabins and the nightly rental code will be addressed in the future. I know it's a little early to talk about this one on this, but when the tiny cabins were built, there's a lot of discussion about how they're inspected. So if they're built on site or if they're brought in, they need to have like the stickers and all that, so just something for when this comes back in the next phase. Hopefully they have that answered by then, and I don't even remember what the outcome was last time, but. So if anybody wants to make a motion,
I actually have one other question, and in regards to the fire department's response to alarms. It also talked about sprinkler systems in there. Did we talk about that? I don't know if you read that part of it.
I did read that part of it.
I think that part came in and that would be addressed during the.
Okay.
Yeah, like if that's how I understood it too.
All right. Okay.
You might want to include in there just that road
The road
dedication.
with the staff comments for the road dedication and
And whatever you have and that would be
just to make sure it's there.
the UDOT plans are in process. We've been through our first review with UDOT that way, but they're a separate drawing and we'll have those and get those prepared and present them to you. But the UDOT requires their plans on 11 by 17 sheets and all of your plans are construction drawings. So it's both separate and it's different. What's that? You not?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, yes, you require some, but if it is 11 by 17, it's both.
All right. Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot of information. We'll just
Okay, I make a
keep adding
motion
to it.
for approval on item 16, preliminary site plan application for Settlers Junction RV. With the inclusion of staff comments, also subject to the new code for nightly rentals that we will be working on. Also to have the drawings include the trash enclosures and to get the dedicated right-of-way from UDOT.
just the roadway,
Oh, I'm sorry. The dedicated roadway that they require.
dedicated roadway and the Utah encroachment, basically.
What he said. I like that. So I would use that.
Dana makes us.
Dana, did you get all that?
Yes, the motion was to approve the staff comments, trash enclosures, road dedications with UDOT requirements, and the provision of the nightly rental addressed in the near future.
Yeah, and I think that might ought to state that they'll be subject to the new code, the new nightly rental code. You want to make that amendment?
Yeah, I would like to include that it be subject to the new code for nightly rentals.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, that concludes the business portion of our meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That'll take us to the discussion items, and I didn't get a chance to talk with Mr. Tomsick about this, but we got a really big lesson on the sign ordinance from Darren, because Darren happened to be the mayor at the time that the litigation happened for this. So I think we may, I don't know if you worked on it anymore, had more time to work on it, but I think we might ought to leave it where it's at after the discussion we had with it.
I tend to agree. I think a lot of the comments, I commented to Val earlier that the comments were made in there were minor little things about include a statement or really didn't have any major effect on the sign code. We could spend a lot of time going through and picking apart the code. I don't see the urgency.
Well, it's definitely not a big, urgency, but, Setback Junction has, it's been a lot of years since I've gone through the, code, but it seems like when we put that together, obviously we're going to be a gas station that would need to have a sign that travelers could see, but, it's trying to prohibit the, what do you call it?
Billboards.
Yeah, basically billboards, and, because we just didn't want a bunch of billboards down 17 and that type of stuff in the night sky. It was basically the ordinances, why we have that ordinance is because there was litigation that went to a settlement, and you can read about it since I'm a public knowledge. So the city kind of came out smelling okay afterwards, but we ended up with 5.
Grab the microphone. I forgot to be the microphone cop after I'm going to get in trouble by. Forgot to.
It wasn't on. But yeah, so essentially that whole sign ordinance was written by our previous attorney, and was just try to protect what we have. And actually, Anita Eaton at the time, she actually is one of the major proponents of that. She went through it quite in depth and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of things, and I know it's not going to fit every application that we have that's going to be proposed, because I don't know what Settlers Junction, this RV park that came through tonight, what kind of signage they're going to need. They're going to want to let people know that they're there, but I think if you're going on the freeway and you look, oh look, there's an RV park, I don't know how big of an opportunity that's going to pull you over to that RV park, but it might. And but I know that if I'm going along and I'm about out of gasoline and there's a Texaco, I can see that and I'll jump off, And we've seen this, but it was on site. Those were specific to on site signage. It was not site signage and different things. So, but I don't know other than that if there's any comments. But I didn't have opportunity to see what your comments were or how it changed at all. But I think anybody could help it out. we just having that crystal ball to see what's going to come our way is a little bit hard sometimes. We're finding that out right now with our codes that are needing to change.
For off-site.
Yeah. Right. So on the on-site stuff, I can't remember exactly what all that, but that's probably more so and more important to what we're going to be having coming with, let's say, a Maverick or whatever else, because Maverick's going to have certain things that they want to have, and our code prohibits, and we're in there scrambling. And we don't want to sit there and change code every time we have an application. We want to get a code that we feel is good, but we don't want to discourage commercial development either.
The Department of Transportation is going to have signs posted that says places to eat and places, rentals and facilities.
Yep.
That's going to be posted right along the freeway. So
Yeah, you're right. So
Okay.
that's all I really have.
Do you want to show Darren your changes, or you want to just say let's keep it as is for now, or what do you want to?
I think the comments that Mike and I made
Kim?
probably are not really of a nature to change much. To go through the process to change a couple of words probably isn't worth our time right now. So I would say the code as it stands is probably fine. The one question that he had was who will approve or inspect sign permits, and that in the code, the way it's written, it says it could be the planning commission or staff. And there was some debate about if we start having to deal with a lot of sign permits, planning commission is probably not going to be able to do it. So we
If it
may
is a
want to
written
eventually
board?
state in there that it could be a staff function.
Is it written planning commission and/or staff, or is it just,
Well,
can't remember?
yeah, I think it says and/or at one place, but then final inspections, it was and/or, which you could leave that in. Could clarify it and designate that responsibility more clearly maybe, but I think for now there's not a significant change necessary.
Okay.
Just so I understand, because I know we had a few months back, maybe a year back, and I know I heard comments from Anita about it or something, but the sign that blew over, that blew over because it wasn't engineered correctly or something along those. Is that does our current code, and I didn't read through it, so I don't know this, but who is responsible for making sure that not only that it was engineered, but that it was correctly installed?
There is a statement in there that implies that it should be built to building code standards. But I think that was one comment that maybe could be added. Make sure that it has building safety.
So it has to have an inspection done, and is that called out in the?
It is.
And it's inspected by an engineer or whoever. Sorry, should have.
And engineers never assume any liability anyway.
I believe when they did the Tokerville sign, walking to Tokerville, I think I was still mayor on the first one they put up. But we asked them, required them to show a site, plus any details on the cross sections, how much concrete they needed to put, reinforcement of rebar. I believe that was shown when they were working on it. So I remember Lance and the staff going out and building the footings before they brought the
So they
sign
set
in
it?
and set it on with the crane. So I know there was a lot of that. I remember asking Nina to take a look at the sign ordinance and saying, "You believe that this is?" I think it was inside the room. But I asked her to look at it because I put a lot of faith in somebody with design and crafts and buildings, and she definitely went through that. So, we should more familiar with this.
So with that sign that blew down, and maybe you can fill this in out of me because I don't know. I know the weld broke. It was supposed to have an interior sleeve or something like that. Was that not ever inspected when they installed? I mean, or was that not a requirement? What was that?
Probably wasn't.
I don't know, because the other signs were built
The same-
differently.
Oh, really?
It was just that one that.
I believe that out, for sure, but I remember when we were going through the whole litigation on those signs, we were talking about the depth of the base of the concrete and different things like that. I believe that became part of the drawings when they finally did install those. It seems that concrete is down 15 feet and probably 30 feet, maybe 20 feet.
They did a butt weld,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pipe on pipe, and then they just butt welded it instead of having a pipe slide, the upper slide into the bottom, like, and the rest of them are that way. But this one just happens to be just butt welded.
As far as inspection, we probably go with what they call a special inspection from an outside inspection. They come out, we have the expertise because there's.
That's kind of why I'm bringing this up. And if that's not in our sign code, it probably should be.
Are you worried about rain too?
Yeah, a little bit. And we actually had a sign blow over. So.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea. That could be a major one change. Do that.
Required inspection?
By somebody who actually knows.
We also could do that by policy. We would have to go into the code and change and explain everything. I don't know exactly what that may cost.
Well, maybe we'll look at the,
Policy staff would just ensure that inspection.
Look at the application and see if we can just add that policy to there. Yeah.
The application and just as a special inspection. Like the Associates has engineers and they actually have other engineers that are certified special exceptions.
We don't typically, in our code, we don't typically say that a house needs to be inspected by a building inspector. We just do it by policy. So it's not in the R1 zone.
I'm just guessing. I'm thinking that they probably approved the plans and the footings and all this, and it probably never did.
That's what I imagined happened as well. So then,
It's a bit, build it to this spec. Okay, that's another task for you to do. I mean, you don't have anything going on. Just kidding. Okay, so we'll look at that portion, and then we can probably take that off the agenda for next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to discussion item number 2, and Mr. Huntsman is going to give us a great presentation on this.
no, it's going to be pretty short. So I was asked to look at we're creating a recreational resort zone. So in my mind, that's what I was looking at, is to go through and find a zone that I could fit to this recreation resort. I had looked through Hurricanes, I looked at Garfield, I looked at Park City, I looked at a lot of different ones that had a zone for recreational resort, and they all seemed very vague and not really something that would work. So I went into looking into the PDO or master plan. I'm not sure exactly what you would call it. And I tried to find a jurisdiction or a municipality that was similar to the feel of what we have in Tokerville. We like our historic feel. We like that type of thing. And also somebody who had just recently updated their code or their zoning. And what I found is Midway, Utah. In 2018, they went through and they changed their recreational resort zoning to include. So initially, they had a code that said basically looked like you could do a hotel with a pool, and it didn't really require any commercial aspect to this resort. And so they were having trouble, people actually coming in and trying to do apartments, and their only argument against that was that it wasn't in the nature of the code or the zone. So they wanted to go back in and revamp it, and so that was something I was like, wow, that's something we need to look at. How do we eliminate that? So this one actually has a component of a percentage of commercial, percentage of non-residential, short term, I guess I should say, and then residential longer term. There's a lot of things in here that I think could be changed. As I was kind of looking at the Firelight proposal, 310 acres, kind of fitting into something that would encompass that and be able to handle all of that going on. I actually reworded the purpose and objective. It didn't quite fit what I thought we were looking at. So I kind of took and cut and paste and made some of my own words, some of the Hurricanes resort zone and different things like that to kind of make it sound a little bit more like it fit Tokerville. Some of the things that so I looked at their staff comments when they came up with this zoning. Some of the things that I thought were important that they addressed in that was, and I'll just read kind of what they said. The proposed amendment will establish permitted and conditional uses allowed in the resort zone. There's page, whatever it is back here. We've got quite a few different uses. They do require, and I don't, as I was looking at this, I was like, wow, there's so many things to look at, but they require 20%, 25% of their 20% commercial be retail. I don't know if that's something that, we need to line out of there, those kind of things. But there's a lot of things like that I saw.
I'm gonna have to draw a map to see how the percentages work.
Yeah,
It's
it
pretty
definitely,
confusing.
it was definitely. So what they had, or what I gathered from it, is they had somebody come in the resort zone and try to put apartments. And so they were like, we've got to change this. something that, yeah, I'm gonna take that one out. The proposed amendment will establish setback and height requirements. It talked about, if you're further off of the property line, you can go up as long as it doesn't impede on heights or on visual. Which I thought was kind of good. Something that I didn't quite get an understanding on, and I don't know if it still needs to be in there or not. I did talk to Joey a little bit about it, and that is the water rights and how that's assigned to the property. And basically, they had issues where they would approve a project. They said they had the water rights, and in the process of completing the project, some of those water rights got sold off, that kind of thing. So they required an escrow on the water rights. I believe that would probably go through Washington County Water Conservancy District. And I don't know how, do you have any insight on that? I don't know exactly.
They're actually asking the city council to adopt lots of things that we do water. They sent us a request to actually go to the city and find places where we can start taking out grass to do that. So they definitely are not wanting.
So in regards to somebody,
Obviously. So that, I mean, that was one of the things that I was wondering right there. What for that resort zone overlay is like, yeah, talking about the actual fee, and we're talking, I mean, there's a lot, right?
well, the thing that for me, it was about, if you say you're going to bring the water rights in, that we have that in escrow, so you can't touch that. And when you complete so much, then, it's deeded to the city and that kind of a thing. And,
I just know
made a
that
lot of
right
sense.
now, even Water Conservancy, I mean, the city of St. George, and their city managers, they're even starting to put on their preliminary plats and final plats that we do not guarantee water.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to get Water Conservancy on board with approving.
I guess, so to me, it was,
Really,
it was about, if you say you have the water rights, then we lock those water rights up until you complete portions of that. And that goes through Water Conservancy. I don't know how that's.
Some of it will go through Water Conservancy, but the other will go through Tokerville City. Because
Right,
Tokerville
and
City
so to
has-
me, it kind of makes sense to hold on to those water rights while they're doing the project.
Yeah, but the thing, like I was saying, is we don't really have water rights anymore. We buy it from municipalities or, so that, I think,
Yeah, and that's why, because I know that they have their town water board and.
No, but there could be an instance where, let's say on the south end where the fields or lows or whatever, they decide to develop it, that they would then, you would have to, and I agree with you, then you would have to commit those rights and.
maybe we just put something in there that it's, their burden of proof to bring the water for it, right?
Yeah,
In their presentation, I
whether you
think
get it
they
from-
said they had water rights.
they did. He
Yeah, I
said that
thought
they
so
were in the
too.
process of securing 200 acre feet.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, not understanding exactly how the water moves around. I know we have a conservancy district, so I don't know how that goes, but figure out. Mhm.
Did you leave it in here?
It is in here. It's still in here. It talks about going into escrow and when those water rights are released, and go to the city and that kind of thing. So, or Water Conservancy or whoever is going to take those. Right? Would that be taken over by the city? Right? Is that how that would work? Or?
Who would even have water
Because then we
rights?
take over
BLM?
No, there's a lot.
There's a lot of private property owners that have water rights still.
I mean, you could buy, if somebody's willing to sell, you could buy water rights out of Ash Creek and then move them to here. I mean, you can't just move them anywhere, but you could move from Ash Creek to here. Or, yeah. Right. Yeah, that's going to save drainage.
I have seen that happen in Vegas. That's
And those codes have been nullified through abandonments of water rights.
Right.
Because You don't know the water rights.
Yeah.
The right to use it is all you have.
And if you don't use it, you lose it.
The date and how old it is and priorities and
A lot of issues when you get into water rights, there are so many ordinances and methods of different things. Some different interesting things there with the water and the water.
Well, I have it in here. We can look at it, rework it. Legal counsel, I think, makes a lot of sense on that. So.
Did you guys have a chance to actually look at all this? So the one thing that I love about it is it has preliminary, basically, it's not really preliminary, but it has the process of how to obtain and how to basically evaluate. It has the whole process in here to get from A to Z, like really well defined. And that's something we didn't even look at in any other stuff, so I don't know. The one thing that we might, and I didn't get a chance to go through the whole thing, but what we need to do is actually define what it is. Is that?
Yeah. So,
Like,
is it a hotel or is it a commercial, recreation resort? And to me, when I look at it, I'm saying, well, recreation resort sounds
well,
like
when we're so actually, we can actually make that easier, but because we're going to make this a resort zone overlay, or I don't even know if zone is the right
It's
word,
a
because we just need a resort
planned
overlay.
development.
Kind of,
overlay.
but it's gonna, so you can have like, in Firelights condition is they're gonna have an MPDO, they're already gonna have a development, and then we're gonna stack another overlay over the top of that, and that was a recommendation from Heath, instead of having an actual zone. So when you talk about an overlay, now you're gonna encompass acreage, 50 acres or 200 or 10,000, whatever it is. So what we have to do is define, what that resort zone is, basically in the first section, and then everything else will fall in place after that, kind of in this model. I like it a lot.
Well, they had in there, and I took it out. It was on properties that were 2 acres or less. They were still applying some of this. They had different setbacks, no setbacks, that kind of thing. But it's 5 acres, and I don't know, are we good with 5 acres, or do we want to step up to a larger, number of? The other thing I saw in a lot of this is that the general plan, and this was something Jason had brought up, is that the general plan will have to be changed, because there's really nothing in the general plan that talks about building this kind of thing in Tokerville.
Right, that was gonna be my next question, because we're actually, I've already got technical planning assistance in the general plan. We'll find out if we've got that there, maybe a decision of the big one, and then the general plan update would start, and that takes about 6 to 8 months. So we do have some time with that. That was my next question, was where you were seeing in the current general plan this zone would apply. That it would be, I mean, I know it mentioned the general plan in there, but I just wondered where you were kind of thinking, just as you were drafting it. I mean, not just kind of where you were thinking that you would see something like this.
And I looked at, Jason had his, where he went through and quoted the general plan and all that, and it doesn't, for me, it doesn't fit Tokerville. So when I look at it, it just doesn't fit anything that we have. When you look at highway commercial and things like that, it's all about hotels and that kind of thing. But to me, a resort zone, I've seen it defined as a hotel with a pool, and that's not something that's beneficial to all the residents of and that kind of a thing. So I didn't really see anything in our general plan that I said that this applies to that.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if it would be more down where the proposed resort zone is for Firelight. They have down there, if you just saw that kind of adjacent. I'm just curious. I just wondered kind of where you were thinking.
Well, that's kind of, so I knew
Kind
this
of
was
see
coming
it.
up, and I said,
Yeah.
we've got to really step this up and figure out how we can deal with that kind of thing coming. And the other part of it is that, it says applicability, the recreation resort zone shall only apply to those land areas so designated as RZ zoning in the Tokerville zoning map. So all of that would have to be, okay, we decide this is where we want to put these things.
Yeah,
So we don't currently, not that I'm aware of, have any resort zoning in Tongaville map.
right, yeah, no, we don't have anything like that. That's why, yeah, I was just curious about kind of where your thoughts of where that would be in line with the general plan to do it.
Yeah, and then the other side of that is does it apply to a hotel and a, or do we have to have something else that,
I think since we got it yesterday, or
yeah.
I would love to spend some more time in here and then just, and I think, so what we've done in the past, because this is a huge document, this isn't a tiny ordinance, or this is something that is going to take, this is probably the biggest document I've seen come through on the planning commission since I've been here. So I think we should all take the next 30 days and just go through it and have you guys go through it too, and just everybody highlight stuff and just ask the questions, what do we see? And then, we can give you the feedback at that time, and then start that's the only way I know how to do this, is just.
No, and I think that's kind of what I was hoping to
I
do.
think that's really wise. I think too, as we go through it, it's gonna be really important even as we do the general plan, so we wanna make sure that as we're creating zones, that we're not just allowing everything to be overlaid with whatever we want. We can overlay this, this is zone, this, okay, just overlay. This, okay, just overlay. That's why I'm wondering.
I can't remember.
Really be thinking about what you'd like to see. It's super important to me, I'm not saying that I'm opposed to a resort, so especially just a hotel with a pool, and those things fit. But it's important to me that as we move through regionally the general plan, that what you actually want to see Tocqueville look like, that is put first, right? And so I think I just want to make sure that we are just creating every single time an overlay zone, so that anybody can build anything they want wherever, maybe I want to build an overlay zone where I can build, I'm just anything, and it's going by where that resort zone is scheduled up there, and that's going to be next to a lot of single family homes. There are lots of things there, so I don't necessarily oppose this at all. I'm just wondering if we just want to watch how many overlays
I can't
we're
remember.
allowing. I mean, people have to be able to develop, that's it. It's not our job to stop them from developing, but also, I think we need to be really, really aware of that. We've got to start looking where we are going to be wanting schools, where we're going to be wanting all sorts of things, right? So I think as we do the general plan, I think the general plan is step one before the resort zone over. I just agree that it's probably wise to take some time and actually read through this
Oh, yeah.
before you just start.
No, we all need to read it, but there was a comment, and I thought it was an email, but I went through my email and I couldn't find it a minute ago. But Heath had told us why it needs to be an overlay and not a zone.
Okay.
And I can't remember what it was. It was at a city council meeting, so we need to ask him again. What was the basis, and
Yeah,
so we
because,
can.
well, and I think especially where, like he was saying, these are small parcels. I mean, like you were saying, like 5
Motel.
acres,
2
2
and 5
acres,
acre,
and
yeah.
right? But the difference is firelights, or like, I mean, those
It's
other,
gonna be
those other
300.
overlays are 100 acres.
Yeah,
Right, you've got to
exactly.
be a substantial
And
property.
that's
so
why
you
I-
have some room.
That's why I say I brought up the 5 acre thing, because that seems small to do an overlay of this size.
Right, and so
overlay.
that's what I'm saying, I want to make sure that just every single 5 acre parcel is an overlay with something, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I like the idea that it's tied to the general plan and the zoning
Right.
map that says these are the areas we would allow this to happen, not just the 2 acres there and the 5 over here and that kind of thing. So-
Right, that was one of my things in doing the general plan, I was saying, well, really, with all of this development coming, one of the first things we have to address is the general plan. Our current general plan says we want to maintain a historic downtown feel, that type of thing. But it's like West Valley City, they said if there was one thing that we would have done different, we would have said, we want to keep this type of feel by limiting, bake shops to 1 per 10,000 residents. We've got to really just go through the general plan, and like I said, we're gonna have multiple public hearings for public input to say like, before in the past, it's been like, okay, well, we didn't really have a lot of commercials, so it's kind of like, okay, they come out for public input or you don't, either way. This is a time where we really actually need public input. If there's ever a general plan that needs public input, it's this one. So we just a couple of things that I was fine, like I said, I'm not necessarily concerned about that, except for the parcel size is very, very small compared to the 100-acre overlays.
Yeah, and that's
So-
exactly how I felt as I was looking at it. I'm like, this doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, so that would only be, that would be my thing, is to really look at the general plan, considering the acreage.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier to do it in that general plan is only allowed in like north-south or.
Yeah, somewhere, and
something,
that would be up to, the general public and to you. I mean, I just really, as we go through this general plan in particular, this general plan update, I want to make sure that they say, right, general plan guided document of the city, and I want to make sure going forward that this one truly has public input. So,
Yeah, I agree. And that's definitely something that's called out on this several times, is that it fits the general plan too. So,
right, because if a developer submits something that meets the standards for review, and it's in accordance with the general plan, right, you kind of gotta.
Yeah, right, right.
So,
At the APA conference, they went over one whole day with the Heber City general plan that they just did last year.
Yeah.
Heber City's probably similar to
Very
us, going from
similar.
a bedroom
Yeah,
community
absolutely.
to expanding it because of the resorts, ski resorts and things. But also, is that grant to have a deadline? When do we have to?
Yeah, so
petition?
we'll find out, so we applied for that, and then, they're under review right now. We had Tri-County Association of Governments, Gary's City, who wrote a letter in support of it. Joey, is the planning commission chairman, wrote one, I wrote one, as obviously the city manager, and then, Mayor Lynn Chamberlain wrote one, and that Sunrise Engineering helped us apply for it. It's about a $40,000 grant. The city, they wanted to do a $9,500 match. So 26% is the maximum you get, is the amount that you could build up to for a match. But the MPO, I talked to Myron with the MPO, and they will actually, the MPO will do the match for us. So it won't cost us anything. I mean, normally it's $40,000 to do a general plan.
Who
So
does it?
I called Sunrise and I said, it takes about 6 months. I have 6 days. What do you think? And they said, okay.
6 months.
So that's what we did. So we got the grant application in. Sunrise came through. We got the grant application in about 6 days. And so, I mean, they hustled. So, I mean, we feel good about it. It's as good of an application as we could have put in. And the general plan needs to be redone regardless. But we got technical planning assistance is specific for the general plan, master transportation, and zoning ordinances. So we'll work through kind of in that order. But the first thing we want to address is the general plan. And so we'll find out in February. And then, like I said, the MPO has told us to let them know, and they'll help us with that 9,500. So it won't cost the city anything to do it. So we were able to work through that. Like I said, very grateful for Sunrise. It should have taken about 6 months to get that going. And they did it in 6
I didn't
days.
think we could do it.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, so Joe Gomez has definitely helped us out there, so that's it. So that's kind of where I'd like to go with the general plan, and I would also, along with that, like to address the master transportation plan. With lots of new roads, lots of new access to do. I mean, who knows, there might be some property owners that come out and say, I've been holding on to this parcel forever, and I want this, and I'm willing to be one of these places where the general plan can say that, It's not like everybody's gonna say, oh, no, don't do it, hotel it cool. Some people might actually say, oh, I've been waiting for this for a long time, I would love this on this parcel of ground.
Yeah.
So I think there's a way to figure it out and work with people, but anyway, but that's just as you mentioned in the general plan, that's the plan for the general plan. So,
So keep working on this, but get the general plan in
yeah, just
place
keep in mind,
prior to.
by March 1st, we'll know if we got the technical planning assistance grant. Either way, we're going to do the general plan, but that's it. We'll just go different funding route and find,
Yeah.
But I think there's I'm really very confident.
So I'll take a look at that and then bring our notes so that I'll give them to Commissioner Huntsman at the next meeting. We'll discuss it again and just keep working through that one. It's going to take some time.
I was all over in this thing trying to draw it up. So.
Yeah, you-
I think you got a really good start. Like, it's like it is an unbelievable start. Do you have any more comments on that one? Okay, so let's go down to the discussion on nightly rentals and tiny homes. So, and I am going to be looking for a volunteer to help with this one. As far as I read the code on tiny homes, or not tiny homes, on nightly rentals, the only thing it is for, it doesn't say if it's for residential or commercial, so therefore it's basically everything, right? So what we need to do with this, since we see it coming, and this is also a direct conflict with the resort zone overlay that we're going to be creating, is there's going to be nightly rentals in these, and it's going to be from outside people. If we just take like the RV park that was in front of us, we can say, make a really simple thing that RV parks are excluded, right? But the tiny homes, so I mean, then they could just make a whole RV park with tiny homes. So we got to be really careful on how we word a night, or exempt some portion of it without creating a tiny home subdivision, basically. And that's my concern on that on that one. And we also, so we could say commercial properties, but then someone could get a commercial property in light industrial or something and make a whole bunch of tiny homes again, right? So we need to really be specific. If we don't want tiny homes, which is one of the reasons we built that code, is to not have subdivisions of it, and not oversaturate Tokerville with them. So there's something else, and I can't remember what I was going to talk about on it, but we got to be pretty careful on how we word that and exempt certain items as motels, hotels need to be exempt in that nightly rental and RV parks. But and we could get the RV park. We should make a new code that just basically calls out RV park, and in that code we could say that that an RV park can have up to 10% of permanent lodging or something in that nature, because a lot of them do.
You're also probably in your commercial zone for hotels. You need some sort of a conditional use inside there to allow for hotels, that type of thing that's specific to that. I think it needs to be coded specifically for
A bunch of
Yeah, where you have these RV, this resort park turned into a RV park.
Right. And there's a lot of things in that code that talks about things like that. So it doesn't become more
Mm-hmm.
as far as the nightly rental for residential, I believe that there's a lot of issues necessarily with it. It might maybe tighten up a little bit, but I think really to try to allow, maybe not take the nightly rental thing and move, just say nightly rental for residential areas, and then maybe another ordinance or whatever for the RV park, and then for the commercial zone, we can put the commercial permitted use instead of it could be a hotel with up to a certain density. I mean, there's a lot of things that's going to go there because our fire district doesn't have a building that is with a 30-story hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's got to be, there's almost going to be two things. And that's just my general feeling. Not with you guys. It's, I felt like Joe was talking about.
With the resort zone, it does actually specify how many people, like 10% are permanent residential or something like that. And then 30% nightly or, that kind of a deal. So adding the percentages to how many people could actually be there permanently because I would think in an RV resort, you want somebody there to manage it and to be watching it and
Yeah.
all of that. So, you know,
The tiny homes wouldn't be permanent residents, except maybe for a
their,
manager.
their rental,
Could be.
yeah, maybe the manager lives in one or something.
Well, the permanent rentals, like that's kind of, they're attached to the ground, or they might not be attached to the ground, but they're not on wheels to drive away. And
Right.
So it'd be like Harrisburg, where they've got park models.
Yeah, park models, yeah.
So what we need to do is figure out a way that we don't hinder the code that we already have. So explain that again. So if we just said this is for residential units only, are we going to open, like residential zoning, actually, not?
No, I'm not saying create a zone. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I'm saying subject to resident zoning only.
So our nightly rental as applies to residential.
So in
Residential.
Enclosure, we have that nightly rental, then, putting that in the box for residential, for what we have in the system here. Could be in the subdivision, wherever a subdivision that wants to see it's that would allow it. Really happening in most places, more so. I remember when they were starting to write that, it was so sticky. If they can get into a sticky situation where they provide that, then we found something even more. But,
I need to look at that, because I think if we said residential only, because we have them in ag zones right now, so we need to say where the conditional use allows residential, where or permitted use allows residential homes,
yeah.
or something like that is what we got to do, because if we didn't do a permitted use, then we would exclude where we have them already.
This stuff is complicated.
Well, I'm telling you, that's why we're having a discussion, is because we don't want to block
Yeah.
off what we've already allowed, right? We could really box ourselves into something that we don't want.
Everybody's input here is very pertinent, because
Yeah.
we definitely want to have ideas before we start trying to craft that.
So even on the ag though, it says that the person must live here and they can only have two, right?
Yeah.
So that,
Well, that doesn't really matter about ag. That just is, that's in the
That's just.
right. So I'm saying it applies to kind of the nature of what we're looking at that we have now is this resident owning a nightly rental. Does that? I lost my train of thought on that, but it. Now we have a commercial property coming in that wants that. Does it?
Well, you just have, like, just in a motel, like you would have to be a resident, like the way our code reads, you would have to be a resident to own that motel, and you could only rent 2 rooms.
Right.
And or the tiny homes and even the RV parking itself. It's not specified and separated in that code.
So if we leave our nightly rental the way it is now, and then we create one that allows them to do it, like we're talking about anyways, and now it's a commercial property that has the ability, and they don't necessarily have to live here.
we still got to do something with the nightly rental code now. We got to say you can only do it in residential permitted areas, right? And then we got to create a new one for the RV park to eliminate percentages of permanent structures or non-movable. And we also, when we put when we verify in the nightly rental code that it's a permitted nightly rental, then or residential, that we need to exclude hotels, motels.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the simpler it is, the better, but it has to make sure that it's.
That the wording makes sense.
And not just the wording, not the one thing I would also ensure we need to pay attention to the revenue stream of transient rentals. Right?
Yep.
We want to pay super close attention to that, because they have the potential to have a significant stream of revenue.
This would be an easy fix for that location of their zone and commercial, and it's a permitted use in the zone, so we don't have just to follow the zoning practice.
That's
That's what you're saying, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, we could do that, but someone could come in light industrial and still do tiny homes. Or, yeah, that's what they're in, right?
No, they're
Highway commercial. Someone could come into highway commercial and possibly put, if we did this wrong, they could possibly put in tiny cabins. Or, they could do another nightly rental subdivision in that zone if we're not really careful. So who wants to volunteer? Do we have anybody that? Oh, that was fast.
Good man.
Sean was really fast last time.
I knew we lost Jason.
I think Val's number's getting really close to coming up pretty soon.
I'm sitting here and absorbing and learning.
So you're gonna modify the language?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to make a modification in the nightly rental and as simple as possible, but I think we should also look at adopting an RV zone. Or an RV code. Yeah, right.
Okay.
And then in that RV code, I think since this has tiny cabins, and the truth is right now we can't allow them to do tiny cabins.
Right.
Maybe we just don't want them here, right? I mean, what's that?
I think reviewing these letters around the area.
Right.
Yeah. It's so, man, you go one thought and you go 10 more the other ways.
You have to remember when I took was appointed to the planning commission many years ago, there was no land management code and the zoning map, I was telling Joey that the zoning map was, I think, it came from the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was on Congress and compared itself with different designations of. There was only residential zoning. And, like I said, the zoning code was probably 8 pages. It was not very many pages. And so as we did this type of thing, Amy and I, it was just a lot of work.
Yeah.
You get it all together, you put it in front of some people, and you completely change.
Oh, yeah.
The process takes a while. And it should.
Right. It's true.
Yeah, we should.
You will never catch every little thing scenario.
The problem that we have with the while that it takes is we have so much coming now that we're like, oh.
Afton's thing today was a really good analogy. You have to tell that analogy. Yeah.
Okay, but I just told you about the direct from Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
What he just said. I just was telling him, I said, it is just 2 steps forward, 3 steps back in every direction. No one else sits into his own plan. Like, I'm trying to do it, and I'm trying to do it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't have this and this, and we don't. And so we're just working through it. It just feels like this huge process, but which of course everything's a process. But I said, I was thinking about the thing I read from Steve Jobs that just said, whenever you're facing something huge, you have to just remember that the iPhone exists.
It's funny, but it's so true. Like,
Well, that-
you need to get number 1 before you get number
That
70.
was how I put that together
Yeah.
and said, here you go.
That's what I was thinking, because I was looking at the uniform fee schedule that's going in front of city council, and I was telling them, but if we do this, we put this fee out, we've got to address what the violation is, and then what is the, and I said, that's it, the iPhone one is going to city council.
You know,
That's where we are.
makes sense.
Okay, so Commissioner Eden will give us a bunch of information. If you need to call me with some questions on that, definitely do. We'll try to figure that guy out. And then we'll all work on that resort zone and try to have some good discussion. Does anybody see any other discussion items that we need to add for the next meeting? You guys want to, anybody seen anything?
I just want to mention one thing before this closes, and it's not for the next meeting, but it is coming up. So Recreational is going to do the open public meeting training in March. It's going to be March 16th at City Council. It's going to be the last hour. He's going to talk about that, and then he's going to talk about the Municipal Ethics Act. Just because we've got so many new mayor, new council, new planning staff, we're all so he's going to talk about it's, no, it's, it isn't.
March
No, it's
16th.
March, yeah, no, I said, no, okay. March, yeah, March 16th.
Okay.
Yeah, March 16th.
So, and another thing to add to that is that if, you know, if somebody does come and they like say, hey, I've got a bunch of questions about this, the city just started PSR, which is Planning Staff Review, which is basically designed just for that reason, is that they can call the city, they can get on the Planning Staff Review, and they can go through the process completely, you know, how the city staff should put it through. You know, so
So,
if
yeah. so
anybody
for-
contacts you, just try to get the city and get on PSR.
Right, so for example, I'm sure you noticed when we came in, we were meeting up there, we had planning staff review. And so, and the other thing that it's doing is really great is it is providing, it's solving two issues. One, it's allowing people to come in and get direction on what they need to do next and how to even apply for the joint utility community, things like that. So it's giving them one, and then two, it's helping keep those things for staff approval at staff level and keep them from going just through the process because no one knows what to do with them. So we eliminated 12 things tonight through planning staff review that would have maybe come through from, you know, and just giving them direction. A lot of people call and say, I mean, we have one tonight, but she called and she said, I'm thinking about buying an IV rental. How do I know how can I guarantee it's going to be approved before I put an offer on this house? And you're like, no.
No
You can't do
guarantees.
that. And we don't do that. And so, but it's her first time, you know, going through the process. And so just needing that direction. So
This
it's
is-
a good place for them to do that instead of tracking you in the grocery store. So, yeah, so yeah, we're new. So it's just, that is a great thing. So they can just call and Dana puts them on. She's handling the agenda for kind of stuff.
Okay, does anybody else have any other concerns, comments? No. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to second.
Aye.
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 Okay, planning commission is closed at 7:50.